Have you ever been in a school that just feels like it's constantly putting out fires? That endless cycle of last-minute chaos? Well, what if you could flip a switch and go from that constant stress to a place of calm, predictable control? It might sound like a dream, but there's actually a structured way to get there. So let's dive in and see how it's done. First, let's start with a situation that probably feels a little too real for anyone working in school administration. That constant, nagging headache of trying to make all the schedules and resources just work. On one side, you've got the chaos. We're talking teacher burnout, scrambling to hire people at the last second, and budgets that just seem to evaporate. It's that stressful, reactive mode. But on the other side, that's the goal, right? Balanced workloads, costs that you can actually predict, and schedules that run like clockwork. That's the proactive, stable system we're all aiming for. Okay, so how in the world do we get from all that chaos over to that kind of control? Well, the answer is a really powerful concept, one that's been borrowed from the business world but is a perfect fit for education. It's called aggregate planning. So what is aggregate planning really? Just think of it like creating a master plan for the next 3 to 12 months. We're not getting lost in the weeds of who teaches what class on a Tuesday afternoon. No, this is about zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, and making sure all the major pieces are going to fit together down the road. At its heart, aggregate planning is really just a big balancing act. On one scale, you've got demand. That's everything you need. Think student enrollment numbers, all the courses you have to offer, stuff like that. And on the other scale, you have capacity. That's everything you have. Your teachers, your classrooms, your budget. The whole game is just about getting those two sides perfectly in sync. And why do we do all this? Well, here's the ultimate goal: to create a school environment where amazing, high-quality learning can actually happen. It's about making sure teachers aren't burning out, students aren't getting crammed into overloaded classes, and you're making the absolute most of every single resource you have. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, the great news is this isn't some vague idea. It's a clear, straightforward 5-step process that anyone can follow. And here they are. This is the roadmap. First, you forecast demand. Second, you assess your capacity. Third, you identify any gaps. Fourth, you choose a strategy. And finally, fifth, you create the master schedule. This 5-step process is the engine that makes the whole thing run. Let's break each one down. Step 1 is all about looking into the future. You're basically using data, like your expected student enrollment, to predict what you're going to need. So for example, if you know you've got about 120 fourth graders coming in, and you like to keep classes at 20 kids, well, simple math tells you that you're going to need 6 sections. It's just a simple, data-driven prediction. All right, next up, step 2. This is where you do a reality check on your resources. How many English teachers do you actually have? How many periods can each of them realistically teach in a week? In this case, if you have 8 teachers and they each teach 23 periods, you have a total teaching capacity of 184 periods. See? Now you've got a solid number to work with. Okay, step 3 is where the rubber meets the road. You take your demand from step 1 and you compare it to your capacity from step 2. So what if your demand is bigger than your capacity? Maybe it's time to think about hiring some part-time help. Or what if it's the other way around? Well, you could redistribute the workload, or maybe even add some cool new enrichment programs. This is where you start making those big strategic calls. Now, for step 4, you've got to pick your strategy, your playbook. A level strategy is where you keep your staff numbers really stable. That's great if your enrollment is super predictable. A chase strategy is more reactive. You hire as you need to, which can work if your student numbers are all over the place. But honestly, for most schools, the hybrid strategy is the sweet spot. It gives you that stable core of staff, but with the flexibility to adapt when you need to. And finally, we get to step 5. This is where the plan becomes real. All of that forecasting and planning and strategizing gets turned into the actual documents that run the school. The teaching timetables, the duty rosters, the assessment calendar, the whole shebang. This is the tangible result of all that hard work. Okay, so that's the process. But theory is one thing. Let's look at a real-world example to see just how powerful this can be when a school gets thrown a curveball. So, picture this scenario. I bet it's a familiar one for a lot of schools. Out of nowhere, you get a huge unexpected jump in enrollment for one grade level. Without a plan, this is usually the exact moment that panic sets. But with an aggregate plan already in place, there's no need to panic. You just follow your steps. First, you forecast the new need, and you see the gap. Okay, we need one more section. Then, you apply that hybrid strategy you already chose, and it points to a clear solution. Hire one part-time teacher and slightly adjust an existing teacher's schedule. And finally, you just build the new timetable. It's calm, it's methodical, it's not a last-minute scramble. And here's the crucial part. What's the result? A smooth transition. A potential crisis that could have easily led to burned-out teachers and jam-packed classrooms is just handled, calmly and efficiently. That is the power of planning ahead. And the impact of this way of thinking goes way beyond just solving one-off problems. When you use it consistently, it can fundamentally change your entire school's operations for the better. And you feel these benefits absolutely everywhere. Teacher workload becomes fair and manageable, which means a lot less burnout. Your budget suddenly becomes way more predictable. Timetabling is smoother with fewer conflicts, and the quality of teaching stays high because everything is stable. And it doesn't even stop there. This approach cuts down on those high-stress crisis mode decisions. It forces you to use data to make choices. It improves communication across the whole school. And maybe most importantly, it seriously boosts teacher morale because people feel like they're part of a fair, transparent, and well-run system. This quote from our source material just nails it. It's about using a structured, data-driven approach to line up everything you have with everything you need. And it's all done for one reason, to make sure you're providing the best possible learning experience for your students. So that really just leaves us with one final question to think about. It's a simple one, but it gets right to the heart of why this all matters. Is your school strategically planning for success, or is it stuck in that all too common cycle of just reacting to the next crisis? Because the choice between those two, it seems, can make all the difference.